Hey, it's Lisa again. Welcome to my studio. So a lot of you are watching my videos, enjoying them, and responding with questions. Thank you so much. I so enjoy being here with you and sharing this info with you and sharing time in my studio, which is my happy place. I love to be out here, love to be sharing this info and this time with you. So one of the questions is, how do you know when to scrape and reprime your ceramic? So that's a great question. I do it in my studio all the time without really even thinking about it. So I thought I would share a video with you on how I do it. So this kiln shelf right here. So basically I prime right over the top. This is a ceramic shelf. Okay, I prime right over the top unless the shelf shows signs of wear. Check that out. That's some wear and some chipping, right? This is the raw shelf. Well, the glass is definitely going to stick to that, so that's not good. This is probably a better side to be working on. So when it shows signs of wear, when it shows chipping, it looks thin, you can see the shelf underneath, that's when you want to scrape and reprime. Now one option, if you don't want to scrape because it's very dusty, you can soak this or kind of hose it with water. And outside I generally would do that. And it'll eventually come off. The problem is that the shelf retains a lot of moisture then, and you have to wait for that shelf to completely dry before you can use it. That may be days. Now here in Florida, I can sometimes just put it in the sun, solar dry it. But still I would wait a day or two before I use it just to ensure that the interior of that shelf is really dry throughout, all the way through. Because these are porous material. Unlike stainless steel, which does not retain moisture, the ceramic definitely does. So when you're ready to scrape it, my tool of choice is usually a single edge razor blade on this little handle. You could also use a putty knife that's kind of sharp. If you don't have either of those, you can also use this material, which is like a stiff screen. This is a sanding material used for drywall. I'll show you the packaging here. It's drywall and plaster sanding for screen with a grit of 120. So it's stiff, and as you do it like a circular motion, it takes off that coating. But as you can see, this is time consuming and dusty. It's kind of a pain in the neck. You could also use the scraper. But as you can see, this isn't really sharp. It's also a lot of work, and it's not really getting down to the shelf. Now, you can, as long as this is smooth, you can leave it. You don't have to get all the way down the shelf everywhere, but it's kind of a pet peeve of mine that if I start to see the shelf in one area, I want to see it everywhere. So this is working a little bit, but not so great either, which is why this is really my tool of choice. So it's good. Let's put a little bit of elbow grease into this. See how that's coming off nicely all over? It also helps if you go against. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put my mask on while I'm doing this. I hope you can still hear me. Often I will do this step outside of the building over a trash can with my mask on, so I'm not getting all this stuff in my studio. So I'm having to push pretty hard. I have a pretty strict angle. And I'm being pretty successful at getting all of this material off. I'm going to lay this down so I have a little more leverage. Here we go. And this is why I prefer not to have to take this all the way down if I don't have to. Because as you can see, this is messy. And it's time consuming. So your shelf will likely have to be taken down to the bare shelf if you're going hotter than full fuse of 1465. Because at that temperature, higher temperatures, the primer will sometimes stick to the back of your glass, scrapes right off. And if that happens, it's coming off your shelf. Or if you don't mix the primer correctly, you have too much water, not enough water, sometimes that causes chipping on your shelf primer. All right, here we go, getting close now. Let's turn this over, see if it works any better the other direction. Maybe that way it's sharper. All right, if you're not having good luck, go from a different angle. A lot of times that will help you kind of get underneath it and get that last little bit off. All right, So right here, I have a tough spot. So I'm going at it a little harder. I'm going to rotate the shelf a little bit. See if I come in a different direction, then I'm having better luck. There we go. Move some of that out of the way. All right, so here I'm having a little hard time. So come at it a different direction. See if that helps, which it seems to. All right, we're getting it, almost there. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Oops. There we go, look at that. All right, this area, I could take this sandpaper, go over it. It doesn't have to be completely uniform, provided it's smooth. We're really looking for a nice texture. And the texture will be the texture on the back of our artwork. So as long as it feels smooth, like this little piece right here, you don't have to necessarily go for it, but what the heck, you might as well, right? Do your best work. You hear me say that all the time. Well, that includes your maintenance in your studio. I can move this out of the way momentarily while I clean this up. So you can see why that single edge razor blade works really nicely. And with that handle, you have really nice leverage, because you saw I had to put quite a bit of pressure on that primer there in order to get it to come off. There's a trash can down here. I'm not throwing this on the floor. All right, so here is our shelf ready to be reprimed. Let's go ahead and just prime it. So this is Bullseye Shelf Primer. It's mixed like 4 parts water to 1 part dry powder. And it kind of settles on the bottom. So I'm going to stir it as I go along, stir it, and then I'm going to prime the shelf. All right, so I'm going to stir it so that make sure that powder is, suspended in the moisture. And I'm going to take my hake brush and I'm going to prime the shelf. Look how it absorbs that primer, just sucks it right in. This porous shelf, once you have it down to the bare ceramic, it's very, very thirsty. I'm going to go in a different direction. And notice how the color is getting deeper. That means you have a good primer on there. Now I'm going to go another direction again. And notice how it's getting even deeper in color. That's good. Now because this was taken down to the bare shelf, I think I'm going to go ahead and put a 4th coat. You can do 3 or 4, whatever looks good to you, where you can't really see the shelf below. You have good color and good coverage. All right, I think we're going to call that done. And there you go, a shelf ready to go. Now I'm going to take this out of the picture, put it over here, so I can show you some other things. Now here's some ceramic molds, and these are a little dusty because they've been sitting around on my shelf. So first thing I'm going to do is dust them off a little. Now this one, you notice that the primer is pink when I put it on. Well, as the molds sit around the studio, the color fades. So when I put a mold away, I put it on the shelf, I know it's been primed, I don't have to worry about it. If it needs to be primed, I leave it on my work table until it is primed, then I put it away on the shelf. That's how I understand or know which pieces of ceramic have been primed and which ones haven't. So to prime this little ceramic bowl, we're just going to go right over the top of the primer, put it on there, it kind of puddles in the middle, that's fine. And just kind of do a couple of coats, and now that one's ready to go. And then this one, I'm going to prime in this direction, prime in this direction, and then maybe diagonally, so we give this one 3 even coats. I don't know, did we do 3 on this one? Don't remember, so let's go ahead and add another one, just to be on the safe side. There we go. This mold right here has a really cool shape, like a fluted shape. You can see it from the edge here. But it has some signs of wear. Wear means that I can see through the mold primer and I can see the mold underneath, and it's not smooth. So what do you do with this? This one, a couple different options. You could soak it in water and then wash the primer off with something like this, but then you'll have to wait for that ceramic shelf to completely dry before you prime it and use it. So that might take a couple days. Another option would be to take this material, this screen material, and gently go over it. Let me go ahead and put my little mask on. because this creates some dust. There we go. And just lightly go over it with this, and you don't have to take it all the way down. The idea is just to make it so it's not bumpy, so it's smooth. So I'm hitting the high spots. Now you could also bend it like this if you want to get in those shallow areas. Kind of going around. Circular motion seems to work pretty well. And again, we're just trying to get it where it's smooth. A little rough there. Okay, just kind of touch that up. Now, just to be clear, I only prime my molds, my slumping molds, when they, oops, let's get that off. When they show signs of wear, like the primer is chipping, I can see the mold underneath, or I feel like I don't remember if they are or are not primed, then I would go ahead and reprime them. I'm going to dump this dust here in the trash can. There we go, now it's pretty clean. And so I don't have to get the all the primer off, just where it's flaking and where it's not even. Then I take my brush, I stir that primer to get it nice and drippy again. Make sure to get all that dry material saturated. And then I go ahead and prime the mold all the way around. Now you don't need to prime the bottom or the underside because the glass isn't going to come in contact with that. So just the top. It's going to tend to puddle a little bit in the middle, that's fine. There we go. And this looks like it has some nice good color, nice even coating. Now, there's a lot of question about when I prime a mold and when I prime a shelf. I prime my kiln shelves every time I use them. So right here I have a kiln shelf that does not show any signs of wear. It has been used. And so rather than scrape it, rather than sand it, I'm just going to prime right over the spent primer. So stir the material up nicely. And then go ahead and put my 3 coats on here. Okay, so we've got 2 coats on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a 3rd. All right, can you see how this primer is kind of dragging, getting lumpy? That means I need to stir it a little bit more, or possibly add a little more water. There we go. Now it's nice and smooth. Now if you do end up with lumps or some texture on your shelf after it's dry, you can take a dry hand and wipe it over the shelf and just take that very top surface off to make it smooth again. And there we go. We've got a nicely primed shelf ready to go. So I reprime my shelves every time I use them because I'm going to a full fuse generally, and I want to make sure the glass doesn't stick. The slumping molds, we go to a lower temperature, and so you don't have to prime those every time because the primer can go to 1600 and these only go to 1265. So if they show signs of wear, yes, reprime them. If they don't, and you're concerned, prime right over it or sand it, scrape it, whatever you want to do in order to get a nice finish. I want to show you one more mold, and that's this new little mushroom cap mold I have. And you can see here that the primer, I'll hold that a little closer, the primer is coming off. It's flaking in those little tiny pockets. It's likely flaking there because that's where it puddled, because it's a fluid. So I'm going to take my little sander, sand just those little areas. Yeah, should be wearing this, shouldn't I? Yes, I should. All right, let's get this back on. This is the messy part of the studio. And sand that off a little bit. Okay, I got some pretty good dust there. Whew, there we go. Okay, I'll take my bench brush here, give that a little bit of a dust. Oops. This is where it's getting a little messy. That's all right. Messy's fine. All right, had a little flakies there. But see how nicely this takes it off. And then there's no need to do the rest of it, just where you have those little bumps because you want it to be smooth. So that when the glass comes in contact with that, it doesn't take on those textures. All right, now I'm going to mix my primer again. And go over the mold. Make sure I get the whole thing coated wherever the glass is going to come in contact with it. Do the outside edge just in case. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Check out this side. There we go, on the top. And no harm in doing the outside edge. There we go, looks pretty good. Now, there's a couple little bumps here. When this dries, you just take your finger, kind of smooth over it. It'll get rid of any of that texture that's on there. See, look right there? Just kind of smooth it over. And there we go, ready to rock. All right, so I hope you enjoyed seeing priming ceramic shelves and when to prime them, when to scrape them, and seeing how to prime some different slumping molds. So really enjoyed having you here today with me, enjoyed sharing this with you. I hope it's helpful for you in your own studio. And so thanks so much for being here with me today. I've got some new t-shirts, new fun shirts. Please check those out on my website. Shirts, artwear designed for artists, by artists. And also I have a membership, a video membership. Please consider joining that. You go to my website, 10 videos for $10, pretty good deal, and they're really awesome videos. And I'm coming up with new stuff all the time. So please like, share, subscribe, all the above if you're enjoying yourself. Also comment. We'd like to know what you think. Some of these video ideas came from you, from your comments, your suggestions, and your questions. So thanks for your participation. Really enjoyed being with you again here today. Looking forward to next time. And until then, happy fusing.